Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Door County. It's our privilege to have all of you here today. Welcome to this table. Whatever path brought you here, whatever load you carry, let us rest a while together. May our hearts be open to accept who comes to us as a stranger. May our minds be open to wonder at what we do not understand, and may our spirits be nourished by our time here together before we again take up our loads and set off on our many paths. We welcome you today. My name is Bob Lindahl, and it's my privilege today to be your service leader. This is the second time in a couple of months that I've had the privilege of stepping in for the intended service leader. The joy of that, I'll do the joy before the joys and concern. The joy of that is most of the work is done for you before you step in. But Hank, I want to thank Hank for all of his preparation in the service today, and I hope that we can carry out the spirit that he intended to have in the service today. He and Buttons are just fine. They were invited to Chicago to be with their sons for the weekend, so they took that opportunity, obviously. So we have a tradition of asking visitors and those who haven't been with us for a while to introduce themselves, perhaps tell us what brought you here. And so I wonder if we have anyone in that category who would like to take the first shot at that. Anybody here? Yes. Yeah, prize, please.
Sally Hall's daughter Karen. I've been here before. I'm here again to visit and for work with the United Nations down in Green Bay.
Okay. Welcome. Welcome. Anyone else? Okay.
I'm happy to be back, everybody.
Well, hi. Welcome back. Welcome back. Anyone else? Okay. So if you have any other announcements, Terry will bring the microphone around. So if you would raise your hand, please, if you have anything that you... Pam, you could just... go ahead.
Hi, Pam Good. Just want to let you know that on the bulletin board there is a notice about electronic recycling next Saturday from 9 to 12 at the Bailey's Harbor Rec Field, and it's always sponsored by Emmanuel Lutheran. They do this every year. There's a long list. Most things are free. There are a few items because of their contents that you do need to pay if you're recycling them. So again, it's on the bulletin board.
Okay, Cindy?
9 to 12 it isn't.
Good morning, everybody. For the guests, I'm Cindy Steele. I'm the president of the congregation. And I want to thank everybody for staying late last week for the meeting about the Caring Committee Coordinator. All of your thoughts and ideas were discussed again on our during our Tuesday meeting, and we've moved ahead with all of our printed materials, and everything will go live on May 1, and live is newspaper, website, and Facebook. Yes, thank you so much for all your participation.
Anyone else? Oh.
Good morning, everyone. Beth Coleman, and just letting you know that next Saturday, May 2nd, is World Labyrinth Day, and people all over the world will be walking on labyrinths, theoretically at 1 o'clock, but not necessarily. So there are two opportunities to walk if you're interested. At Sister Bay Library from 10 to 12, we will be meeting and having time to create a finger labyrinth as well as walk. And then at 3 o'clock, there will be a walk at the clearing. So if you want more information, just see me after the service.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. So a couple of other items. Please be sure to silence your cell phones or whatever else might make noise during the service today. If you ever have difficulty hearing, please raise your hand, and Sarah will adjust the volume to help you out. Following today's service, a reminder to join us in the gathering room for refreshments. Once the service is over, we'll spend probably 10 or 15 minutes in there, listen for the chimes, and after that, you'll have the opportunity to come over to probably this corner. We'll arrange this corner of the fellowship of the sanctuary for us to have a talk back with our speaker today. Are there any other announcements? I want to make sure we clear those out before we move forward. Okay. So we welcome today Marcia Kritzler-Eglund as our speaker. After retiring from teaching, Marcia began working as a women's health educator and advocate, focusing on heart health. She is a product of the Science and Leadership Symposium at the Mayo Clinic and volunteers for the YMCA and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. So we welcome you here today, and we look forward to your presentation. And now we'll light our chalice as we begin to get ready to enter the rest of our service. Our words today are by Bishop Desmond Tutu. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you say that you're neutral, the mouse won't appreciate your neutrality. And now, if you could rise, please, for hymn number 315.
This old world is full of sorrow, full of sickness, weak and sore. If you love your neighbor truly, love will come to you the more. We're all children of one family, we're all brothers, sisters too. If you cherish one another, love and friendship come to you. This old world can be a garden full of fragrance, full of grace. If we love our neighbors truly, we must meet them face to face. It is said, now love thy neighbor, and we know well that is true. This the sum of human labor, true for me as well as you.
We gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to explore freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate within the caring community those truths, ancient and modern, give meaning and direction to our lives. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, in every land, by every tongue. You may be seated. And this is the part of our service as we go to joys and concerns where our sense of community really shines. So we invite you to spread your joy or to share your burden so that you might experience some relief from that burden. Terry again will bring the microphone around.
I know many of you have had my younger daughter in your thoughts. She's in Idaho and battling fourth-stage ovarian cancer. She had a blood test before her chemo this week, and her cancer markers went from over 1,000 to 138. So they've got the right stuff.
Good, good, good.
Hi, I'm Jamie Hanratty. On my way back from California this year, we had the great fortune to be able to stop in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and visit with Carrie and Vic Drennan, who are new friends to us, and here at UU. And we went to their UU church with them, and they have 200 members, plus friends. And they have a second UU church in Hot Springs, not just two. And it was so encouraging to see that in a red state.
Great. Okay. Well, we're on our way to 200, right? So we're on our way to 200. Well, you know,
I think he's probably too shy to toot his own horn, but sitting behind me is Greg, who just won the Volunteer of the Year award. Would you stand up, please?
okay. Terry?
Thanks for that comment about Hot Springs. When I was 7 years old, I saw Liberace play at the Vespers nightclub there. Early experience. I have, after 7 months of living in my out of my suitcase, finally moved back into my reconstructed home. And it's so nice to have water and a floor and a ceiling. And thank you for your patience as I have been loitering and staying at people's homes and couch surfing, et cetera, for 7.5 months. Thank you.
Okay, good. Isn't there someone way on this end of the room so we can get Terry to go over there across the room? Is there anyone? I guess not. I guess not. Oh, Cindy, we got.
I only wanted you to walk. Cindy Nelson, and perhaps this should have been under announcements, but I'll make it a joy, and that is you have a few more days to finish your April bingo, Earth Day. Please bring it back next Sunday, and we will see who has been really doing their job. Actually, we'll just draw one, and that person will be congratulated on completing it. Thank you. Bingo, remember.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. So now it's time for our offering. Our offertory offers us the opportunity to express our gratitude for each other, for the love and justice that we spread together as a congregation, and for the opportunity to support work of our larger denomination. So I invite you to express that gratitude now or online at uufdc.org. It's now time for our minute of silence. I'd like to give a little reflection before we start on the Reverend Martin Niemöller, who made some important life choices before World War II. He was a 41-year-old father of 6 when he applauded Hitler's ascension to power. He had read Mein Kampf and knew very well what Hitler stood for. And even after he watched Hitler abolish the national parliament, ban political parties and trade unions, and persecute his opponents, Niemöller refused to distance himself from radical nationalism and anti-Semitism. The imperfection of his moral compass makes him all the more relevant to us today. This middle-class conservative Protestant who harbored ingrained prejudice against those not like him did something excruciatingly difficult and uncommon for someone with his background. He changed his mind. When Hitler and others made religion subservient to the state, Reverend Niemöller became the leader of a group of German clergymen opposed to Hitler, the Confessing Church, and all that Hitler stood for. In 1937, he was arrested and confined, first in Sachsenhausen and then in Dachau until its liberation in 1945. He became a leading voice for penance, peace, and reconciliation both in Germany and on the world stage until his death in 1984, and stands along with Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Karl Barth, Klaus von Stauffenberg, and those millions of Germans who were not Nazis, just as millions of us are not MAGAs. So here are his words. Als die Nazis die Kommunisten holten, habe ich geschwiegen. Ich war ja Kommunist. Als die Gewerkschafter holten, habe ich geschwiegen. Ich war ja kein Gewerkschafter. Als sie die Sozialdemokraten einspürten, habe ich geschwiegen. Ich war ja kein Sozialdemokrat. Als sie die Juden sperrten, habe ich geschwiegen. Als sie die, ich war ja kein Jude. Als sie mich holten, gab es keinen mehr, der protestieren konnte. First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I wasn't a communist. And then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. And then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. Marcia?
Thank you so much for having me this morning. I'm always happy to share my mother's story, and I think in times like these, it's very important to share this story and to show the power of what one person can do. There were many of those one persons in my mother's life, and because of them, she escaped, and I'm now here to share her story. So this is my mom. Also, I have a lot of slides. Normally, it takes me about an hour to do her story, but this is going to be the speed version of my mother's story. So we begin, the first person who made a difference after the war was General Eisenhower, because he liberated camps, he saw what happened, and he had the thought that we needed to record it because, as in his words, get it all on record now, get the films, get the witnesses, because somewhere down the road of history, some bastard will get up and say that this never happened. And he was right. And this is recorded at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. So the first picture you saw was my mother at about age 65. This is my mom at 4. And this was her favorite toy. She was, at that time, living with an aunt and uncle who took her in because my grandparents were poor and with 2 children, and they knew that my aunt and uncle for a period of time could provide a better home for her. So this is mom at 4. These are my grandparents, Simon and Hildegunda. I am named for my grandmother. My mom decided that no American girl should live with the name Hildegunda or Hilda, although one of my best friends is Hilda. Anyway, so my name is kind of a dichotomy because she went into, Hildegunda is kind of a war maiden, and so Marcia, Mars, god of war. But my middle name is Toby, from the Hebrew tova, which can mean good, but it also mean a dove. So I'm like war and peace. And this is the home they lived in. I visited the house. It's still there in the small village of Brooklyn, where my mother lived until the age of 9.5. So my mom went to school with all the other kids. She had lots of Christian friends. It was a very small Jewish community in Brooklyn. And the Nuremberg laws were enacted, and that placed a lot of restrictions on Jews. We weren't allowed to go to public parks. We couldn't use the public library. We had curfews, but the biggest thing was you could not go to school. So despite her wanting to be in school with her friends, she was not allowed, and neither was her older brother Walter, who had been in a private school. He had a benefactor who saw how intelligent he was and paid his tuition to go to this school in Mannheim, and then he was sent home because he was a Jew. And so things were getting really bad. I also should say, when I come, I like to channel my mother. So I am wearing this locket, which her parents gave her before she left Germany. And at one time it did have their pictures inside, but somewhere along the line, the pictures got lost. The suitcase, I have the suitcase. It's a cardboard suitcase that surprisingly survived all of her travels. And I used to bring it, but it's in sad shape and I just can't bring it out anymore. But when I'm gone, all of this will be donated to either the Midwest Center for Holocaust Education in Kansas City, which is where my mother ended up, or at the U.S. Holocaust Museum, where my uncle's things are. She also had a little red book. Prior to her leaving, my grandparents bought this book. So relatives signed it, friends and neighbors signed it, and I copied the pages and sent them to my mom's cousin in Israel, and she translated all of the pages for me. So this is from her next door neighbor, her best friend, Elizabeth. And she says, "Trust God, He won't leave you. Believe in Him, even if your last anchor has broken. Stick to your beliefs. Often the way to luck goes through pain. Don't fear, even if you are lost. The Lord in heaven will be at your side and save you from danger. He who believes in God will never drown. Think also from a distance of your loyal childhood friend, Elizabeth Staub." So that's just an example of what is in the book. There were messages from her parents. I have a very hard time reading those out loud, but they tell her that her journey will be hard, but she will survive, that she has to be strong, and she took those words to heart, and she survived a lot in her life, and even as an adult, had the strength. She kept her pain to herself and didn't share it. So one of the reasons she was able to leave is that she lived very close to several borders. They lived in a small town that faced, and this is a picture of France where she went first, and it shows the division. But her parents placed her on a train and sent her into the arms of strangers. So she, like a number of children, went to a place where she knew nobody, where she did not speak the language, but she was there because people spoke up and they shared the stories of what they had heard of what was happening to Jews who were sent away from their homes. So she was sent to France, and she was in a suburb of Paris in a children's home here, which was the Villa Helvetia. It had been a convalescent home. The Rothschild family bought the home and turned it into a children's home. And there she was able to go to school and learn lots of different things with these kids. However, the Germans invaded France, and her life was in peril. So all of these children had to escape because France was divided into occupied France and then what was called Free France, Vichy France, which really wasn't free, but it was easier to be a Jew there than it was to be in the north of France. So eventually she had to leave, and it was a very perilous journey. My mom never talked much about what was happening or what had happened, and it was through my uncle and other family members that I was able to flesh out her story, along with another gentleman. So when she had to leave the area around Paris, she was sent into Vichy France to the Chateau de Masgallier. And that at that home, it was more rural. And besides lessons, they also learned how to take care of farm animals. My mother always had a love of animals. She probably would have been very happy living on a farm. But we lived in a suburb of Kansas City, so that didn't happen. But this home, there's a picture of the building and a picture of children working the gardens. This was written by one of the teachers and caregivers. When you are in a better version of this world, think often of your little friends here, all of us who looked after you here, and of our beautiful house of Masgallier that sheltered you so well. And that's the 2nd of August in 1941. In a month, she would be on a ship going to the States. So there were several organizations that worked together to rescue Jewish children, and one of the organizations was the American Friends Service Committee, the Quakers. So here's, as a group, another one who helped her. You have all these people along the way who have helped her, sheltered her, fed and clothed her. And I called the American Friends Service Committee in Philadelphia and asked if they had any information in their archives about my mother's journey. Unfortunately, they did not have those records, but the archivist suggested I find a book that was out of print called Paper Walls, and in it I found information about how the children were able to get out of France and into Spain. So there were many children at this home, and I don't know why my mom was one of the 50, but I am so grateful that she was selected. So you saw the picture of my mother at 4. And I've already told you how old she was. This is a 12-year-old child. To me, this looks like a very sad, unhappy woman. This is my mom at 12. And that picture was taken in Marseille. And I look at that. The first time I saw the picture, I cried. That reflected in my mom's face is all the hurt, the struggle, the sacrifice, the burden that was on her shoulders to do what her parents said to do, to be strong. And it's there reflected in her face. So they spent a month in Marseille waiting for proper documentation. And they had to be very careful because there were Nazis who were looking for Jewish children or Jews in general. And so they had to stay off the streets. So my story wouldn't be complete without Ralph Moratz. That's why his name is in red. Ralph was in the eventual group of 50 that got on a boat. And I had looked over for a picture of the ship, and I discovered his little website, and he had a list of the names of all the children who had been on the boat with him, and there was my mother's name. And so I was able to contact him, and he was very helpful in further fleshing out my mother's story. The little boy with him is named Wolfgang. Some of you are, most of you are the same generation I am. And he came over on the same ship and changed his name to Bill Graham, who was famous for discovering bands like the Grateful Dead. And so he was on that ship with my mom. So when I said they were waiting in Marseille for the proper documentation, this is an image of Ralph's papers to get him out of France, because these children were stateless, and they were without parents. So they had to say, with Ralph, I am 10 years old, I'm not married. It's all here on this document. My mother had one like it, but unfortunately, I don't have it. And G. McMurtry Godley, Mac, signed all of these documents. He worked at the consulate, and so he's another one who stood up and said, I'm going to do something to rescue these children. And I love that his last name is Godley. So my mom had been able to receive some letters from her parents. Shortly, with a year after she left home or was sent away from home, they were sent to a forced labor camp in the French Pyrenees. And she knew that her train from Marseille to Spain was going to go through the French Pyrenees, and she thought maybe there was a chance that she would see her parents. Now, it's been 2.5 years. She was 9.5 when she left. Now she's 12 years old. And this is the train station where they saw each other for the last time. So the train stops at this station. She looks out, and there are parents, and among the parents, she sees her parents. They came to the train window. She wasn't allowed to get off. They couldn't get on. And they had 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That's all they had. And there was a doctor, and this is from the book that I was referred to. There was a doctor on the platform who recorded what he saw, and he said it was such a sad scene. Even the gendarmes on the train platform were crying because these parents and children, as he put it, were cramming a lifetime of love into 5 minutes. My grandparents told my mother that she was on an adventure, that she would be fine. She was going to America, and they would see her in the States after the war. So this is Gurs, the forced labor camp where they were. So these are all Jewish women who are laboring there. There is a cemetery there, and I do have relatives, women who are my great aunts, who are buried there. My grandmother, in her letters, spoke of they lived on slept on lice-infected straw. It was very rainy there, so it was muddy, and all they had were wooden clogs. It was very hard living. So my mother sees her parents. They give her a bag of apples. We have no idea how they got the apples, other than maybe they had received Red Cross packages, and that people, knowing that they were going to see my mom, gave their apples to them. Well, Canfranc is the train station that straddles the border between France and Spain. And so what happens is, because Spain has a different gauge track than France, everybody has to get off the train, go down a flight of stairs, come up a flight of stairs, and they're in Spain. But goods had to be unloaded and transferred. I think the train station is back in service. And I believe the rail gauges have changed, so they don't have to do that anymore. But here's another one person who stood up. His name was Albert Lelay, and he was the chief French customs officer. He had quarters in that building, and he would hide Jews there and, under cover of darkness, transfer them into Spain, where they'd meet up with resistance members who would guide them to safety. He was a very modest man, and he was awarded a prize by the French government, but he never spoke of it. His family did not know what he had done. So a very humble and very modest man who rescued thousands of Jews. Now they've gone to Madrid. Oh, one other little thing. I remember I said something about the bag of apples. Well, when my mother got into Spain, this is right after the end of the French Civil War, there was famine. People were starving. My mother saw a woman on the train platform in Spain begging for food for her children. And my mom thought about the words that her parents had told her, that she would be fine, she would be taken care of. So she reached out of the window and passed the bag of apples to the woman, because she said, I knew I'd be taken care of. My parents told me so. So in Madrid, they were greeted by a lot of women who fed them, gave them lots of sweets. She remembered that. And then they were taken by bus to a convent or monastery where they were able to bathe and get clean clothes, and they spent the night there. Ralph said it was very festive, and they were very happy to be there. So then the next day, they went to the Portuguese border and were met by an American couple from the Joint Distribution Committee, who then shepherded them the rest of the way. How am I doing for time? Okay, good. Well, they got to Spain, and the ship wasn't there. And then, fortunately, the administration of this school said the children could stay there. So they spent a week waiting for a ship to get them to safety. This is the name tag she wore. It said that she was to be on a ship called the Nyasa out of Lisbon. The Nyasa didn't show up because of mechanical difficulties, and the ship that came was the Serpa Pinto. I still have this, but it's in very delicate condition. If anybody knows of a paper conservator, I would love to be able to get this fixed so it doesn't deteriorate anymore. So, the Serpa Pinto was a ship owned by a company that had used the ships for transporting food and steel and all kinds of things, but this company decided they would rescue Jews. They had 3 ships that they dedicated to this, and so the Serpa Pinto was one of them. So Aristides de Souza Mendes was recognized as a righteous among the nations by Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. He was a Portuguese diplomat in France, and he was another one who signed documents to get Jews out and onto these ships. So they were awakened early in the morning, and they were able to get up and onto the ship, and the next day their journey across the Atlantic began. I can't imagine sleeping in the bow. My husband and I are sailors, and I can't imagine being in the forepeak in a moving ship on the ocean, trying not to get sick. So this is the Serpa Pinto. There were about 600 people on board, including my mom and 49 other children. So we don't know the name of the U-boat captain because we're not sure which U-boat it was. It's interesting to note that sailors and the Navy, they were not members of the Nazi Party. And this captain had the ship boarded. They were stopped, and then they were sent to Morocco, where they were boarded again, and everyone had to show their papers. No one was found to be an enemy of the Nazi state, and so they were able to go on. But this put them behind, and if they are a few days late, will they have enough food and water to get them to New York? So they're released, and they get going, and they're so close, and they're stopped again, this time by the British Navy. They had a shot fired across their bow, and they were sent to Hamilton, and they were boarded there and went through the same rigmarole of having to show their papers. And in the meantime, they are running out of food and water. And the Brits realized that no one here is an enemy. They're just trying to save themselves. And they gave them enough food and water to continue to New York. So on this page, it's the cover of a magazine. This is my mom's boat, and my mom is in this picture. Unfortunately, she's obstructed by the little girl who stuck her head through you can see a girl stuck her head through the railing, and all you see, I knew immediately it was my mother. Her forehead and her hair. And she said, I was so angry at that girl. But she was so happy to be in New York. So they actually landed in Long Island. I used to live in the Washington, D.C. area, and I had gone to Ellis Island with my Hadassah group, and I'm looking for my mother's name. And, well, there's a really good reason, because she never came through Ellis Island. But I do have the original of this, and another girl who was on the boat sent it to Mom. So they were taken from Staten Island to Pleasantville, New York. Pleasantville is also the home of Reader's Digest. And there was a cottage called the Cottage School, and the children were kept there. Some of the children already had family in the States, and they were able to go to family, aunts and uncles. My mother did not have any family, and so she stayed for a while and started learning English. So they sent her, HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, which still exists, put her on another train and sent her to Kansas City. And she got there, she was placed in a home. My mother had been in a very observant Jewish home, and this one was not. And she felt like they really didn't care about her, that they really cared more about the stipend that they were receiving for having her. So another person, her social worker, knows that she is not happy and goes to a meeting, and the woman named Betty Brand goes back to her family and says, do we have room for one more? And so Betty went to her family. This is the family. And she was living in the home of her brother-in-law and sister-in-law. Her husband had died, and Betty had 2 young children. So Hyman Brand, the head of the household, said, well, let's have a family meeting. And the only place that she could possibly sleep is in Marilyn's room. Mom was 12, now Mom's 13, Marilyn is 14. So they asked Marilyn, can you share your room? And if she said yes. It's all a matter of saying yes to things. And so my mom moved in with them. So on the group picture, the teenage girl on the left side with her hand on her hips, remember how she was at 12. Now, how does she look? I mean, she has a loving home. They really care for her. And as in my childhood, because I didn't have a second set of grandparents because they had perished, I had Hyman and Clara Brand. And they were Uncle Jaime and Aunt Clara, and they were wonderful people. They were immigrants too. And there she is again. She gets this letter. It's from a man named Eric Roos, who says, I found your brother. And he enclosed a letter. And this was 1945. It took 3 years to get him out of Europe and to the States, but they were reunited, and they never lived more than a few miles apart for the rest of their lives. Then, fateful date. She had a date she didn't want to go on, and Clara said, you really should go, you never know what might happen. Well, she met my dad. It was a roller skating party around Thanksgiving of 1947, And the joke was that, yeah, they fell in love with each other and they've been rolling around with each other ever since. So they go on a date 2 weeks after they met. And my dad had gone home after the roller skating party and told his mother, I met the girl I'm going to marry. Well, my mom was 18. My dad was 28. Cradle robber. And he told my grandma, I'm marrying her. And 2 weeks later, he asked her to go steady. And my mother said, I don't go steady. And so he said, okay, will you marry me? And she said yes. And just a couple of months later, they were married in March of 48. So here's the wedding. And next to my mother, you see a nice-looking man in a suit. Not on the other side, my dad, the nice-looking guy on one side. And then my Uncle Walter, he and his wife, they were in a displaced persons camp. And a month before my parents' marriage, they arrived in Kansas City. So her brother was there for her wedding. They look pretty happy. And then that cute little baby is me. I'm the oldest of 3 girls. Our names all begin with M. Marcia, Marlene, and Marion are 3 girls, and then my parents are Marvin and Millie. So when they signed cards to somebody, it was always the 5 M's, and everybody knew who that was. So everybody in that picture perished in a death camp. My grandparents were transported from Gurs to Drancy, which was a transit station outside of Paris, and they were then sent to Auschwitz. My grandmother was sent immediately to the showers, and my grandfather died of typhus, but basically was worked to death. And this is the end. My mother died in 2005. It's hard to believe she'll be gone 21 years next month. But that was the last picture taken of her, and that was on Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, of 2004. And I think that's it. That's my abbreviated story. So thank you all.
Thank you, Marcia. It's truly heartfelt and inspiring. I'd like to also thank Sandy for all of your work and what you've put into the service today. Thank you so much, and thank you, Cindy, for leading our songs today. So we're going to sing before our closing words, let's join in singing Let There Be Peace on Earth. The words are in a insert in your bulletin. And so if you could rise if you're able, and we'll sing together.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as our Father, brothers all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace be
English our chalice today, we have a reading from Yitzhak Rabin. We all love the same children, weep the same tears, hate the same enmity, and pray for reconciliation. Peace has no borders.